Hello, hello. Surprise, surprise. We're here for our weekly romance oracle message. Ooh, restriction is our first card out. I feel that this whole last 40 days or so, about 35 or 40 days, have been all about taking us through the desert. A place that lacks vital fertility, vegetation, fruitful life that we like to see, that we identify as being plentiful and abundant and pleasurable and fulfilling. And so that has highlighted all the areas in our life where we might be feeling restriction right now. And I think that we have come to the other side of this desert journey, learning to have embraced where our life has restricted us in each of our varying core pillars, so to speak, for the sake of our refinement and our awakening and our soul's correction and even our consciousness purification, right? Dismantling old programming and old belief systems about the different areas of our life, our limiting beliefs, and then choosing how we want to proceed moving forward, consciously adopting positive patterns and belief systems. So we've been seeing these things through our triggers, and we've been able to identify the patterns and then pause and disrupt them, hopefully. So that includes everything, including our love lives. And so I think that because we have resisted the restriction that life had set us in, the boundaries that life had put around us in our love lives, we've been pushing against those and being resistant to it. And so we felt the heaviness of the restriction. But throughout this journey, we've learned to sort of surrender to it and almost then adopt our own value of what the restriction offered us. And instead of life having to practice restriction for us, we have learned how to have discipline, emotional and spiritual discipline, and consciousness and awareness and intention and structure, and we can practice that restriction within ourselves. We can make conscious choices rather than reflexively falling back into automatic response systems, or our kind of natural inclination is to go this way or that way. It's the whole point is to evolve above that and refine ourselves further. So we are able to practice our own restriction, which looks like, setting boundaries with others and with yourself, and keeping those and honoring those and respecting yourself and others, and taking the process slowly, right? And getting to know a real person over time, and vice versa. So, and not dismissing your own needs or your own values or your own, say, non-negotiables or deal breakers, right? But knowing where you can make compromises, and knowing that your needs matter, your experience is valid, and not rushing yourself through it, not projecting qualities on a person that aren't there, whether for good or for bad. And so we're seeing where we have kind of what's tripped us up along the path before. And we can choose this time around, or wherever we are within a relationship or not within a relationship, to start doing things differently, right? To disrupt that program, to stop going in that direction, and to heal that. Learning to trust ourselves through not being so readily open to just giving our trust away to others, but letting them prove that they are worthy of being trusted in the first place. The novice, see, overcoming. It's this is a balance between and a dance between being naive and then jaded. So like the novice can go out on this journey, on this path with no restriction, and then be subject to all kinds of varying experiences with, you know, tricksters and friends and foes and whatnot. And so, you know, if this person doesn't learn over time to set the boundaries, they lose their inner innocence, and they become riddled with defense mechanisms and you know, different layers of things that come through, you know, disappointments and bitterness, or, you know, going through, you know, ups and downs, but like seeing that like people put on false masks and having experiences with people that turned out to be not who you thought they were, but really they were. It's just that you maybe looked past the red flags, right, because of your naivete, or you didn't know what to look for because of how you were raised, or maybe the programming that you received growing up, you didn't know the difference, right? So, but we're learning the difference now. And so now we're trying to dismantle all of the maybe traumatizing things that happened on the path because of that naivete, but also to keep some of that purity and some of that innocence and some of that ability to trust and to be optimistic, but just having wisdom and discernment when we do it, and practicing those boundaries so that you take your time getting to know people. I have known people for like a year and then gone through an experience with them that reveals like a whole another layer of like who they really are, not what I thought. And so this can happen, you know, early on or years in, but it's just worth thinking, oh wow, you know, it takes a while to really get to know someone. So maybe not jumping in too quickly, but also not being so guarded that you are jaded and kind of like hopeless and in despair and sour either. Wound protection. Okay, so again, that just is underscoring and, you know, validating what we're talking about protecting yourself, and it will alleviate a lot of the wariness and paranoia that you have, because where it's really coming from when you can't trust others, it's kind of like points to some way that you have kind of let yourself down either consciously or unconsciously and left yourself untrusting of yourself, right? Maybe you've let yourself down in ways that you didn't even really realize. And so maybe those are coming, you know, into your awareness, and you're like, oh wow, I feel like I could do things differently this time. I might be more careful. I might be more, you know, taking my time and going slower, right? But not being totally closed off either, right? So it's a balancing, and it's a dance. And it requires discernment, but also openness and optimism, but not toxic positivity either. Forgiveness. Okay, I love mushrooms. Mushrooms take what is decaying and breaking down, and they regenerate it into something nutritious and fruitful. So forgiveness, I keep hearing the movie Best Friends, or Just Friends, and the chick sings that song, forgiveness, it's more than saying sorry. Or Anna Faris. But I think forgiving the past, forgiving yourself of times where you feel like you opened yourself up to maybe things that, difficult or negative experiences that you maybe looking back in hindsight, you think, okay, if I would have been wiser, if I would have been stronger, or if I had stronger boundaries, or if I had more confidence, I could have maybe avoided that. And so it's like, you've got to let yourself off the hook, because if you would have been stronger then, you would have been stronger then. That's the journey made you stronger. It wasn't that you weren't prepared, you were prepared the best you could be, but it was the journey through these challenges that have strengthened us into stronger people. It's just that we don't want to be so strong that we become hardened in the process. So we have to forgive ourselves, and then that helps us forgive the past. You know, it doesn't justify maybe where people had wronged you, and maybe they had genuinely wronged you. It doesn't justify them. They're still on the hook for what they did when they go to their spiritual court. But you can forgive the life that you're disappointed that you didn't have, and you can forgive the life that you did live through and the experiences in maybe a more distant way, then maybe that's a first step into forgiving the specific person. It's one step towards forgiving the person, because then you understand that they were playing a part in the cosmic, theater in a sense, right? But it still doesn't like take the sting out of the genuine, hurt that we felt in life either. So when you realize that it's part of the process to help awaken our soul, and that, some of it is planned and some of it is organic and spontaneous, being created as the moment develops. But everybody plays their part in it and can, play a part that has been alchemized into something with purpose. It can serve a purpose if you let it, or it can, drive you into the madhouse with like sadness, madness, and bitterness. So it's easy to go the other way for sure. It's harder to make mushrooms of bullshit. So try to make mushrooms of the rot. Forgive the past, and then eventually you can forgive the person for being that cosmic player in that simulation, in that experience, because you're gonna play a part for something in someone else's experience, and you have, and we all do. So it takes some of the personalness out of it, but it still sometimes doesn't necessarily take the sting away. It maybe does over time gradually, but I think it helps us slowly shift our perspective in a way that is more, it's easier to swallow. It's easier to digest. It feels like it serves something. It feels like it serves a purpose rather than just being random and victimizing us in a way. All right, guys, this week it's all about, realizing where our, appreciating where life has restricted us, because it was giving us time to reflect on where we'd been a novice before, so we won't repeat the same naive mistakes over and over again, because we're not aware. And so now, instead of life forcing us into restriction, we have enough awareness and self-discipline to practice the restriction for ourselves. And we're thinking more about what that means and what that is and what that looks like. And we feel like we're able to trust others in life more as we learn how to protect ourselves with great integrity, but still have have walls of security, but not so stone cold that no one can get in either. So we're learning healthy boundaries, healthy standards, healthy levels of what's an unhealthy expectation and what is a healthy expectation, right? But learning how to stand in that and communicate that. And if someone isn't jiving with it, then on to someone who is, right? And when we're not needy of a relationship, it's easier to walk away in integrity and hold out for someone who is truly, has your best interests at heart as well as theirs. And then also, in order to solidify the magic sauce, the thing that purges the whole thing of the bile is that forgiveness, right? The mushrooms of forgiveness are going to absorb all that sourness and bitterness and death and rot and bile of negative emotion about the past and projections about the past, and it's going to create something, it's going to allow something beautiful to blossom in its place. All right, you guys, that's all for tonight. I'm going to go out for a walk in the woods. I'll see you tomorrow for our weekly reflection message. Ciao.